Hello and welcome to the 23rd episode of the PSPremiere Podcast. I'm your host, James Smith, and today I'm joined by series regular Dory.
Hello, I am regularly Dory. I go by she, her pronouns, and you can find me at Twitter, on Twitter, in Twitter, at Declare192.
And special guest host of the Press X to Doubt podcast, Preston Willke.
Hey, how's it going? Thank you for having me.
Great. Glad to have you here. Do you want to, while we're on the subject, do you want to tell people a little bit about Press X to Doubt?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're a fairly recent podcast. I mean, we do it bi-weekly, where we talk about recent news, but we do it in a two truths and a lie format. So we will come up, my co-host Luke Kirschbaum and I will come up with 3 articles, 2 of which are real, 1 of them is fake. We will go through them. If we have a guest on, I appreciate you coming on this week, of course, James or Smithy. And we will trade off with the guest. At the end of sharing each of our 3 articles, we will try to guess which one of them is fake and maybe put some money on the line, real or fake. Afterwards, in the second half, if we have a guest, we do a little bit of an interview. And after that, we just talk games or whatever we want to talk about that week.
Great. I don't know if you've had a chance to listen to it yet, Dory, but it's I was on it this week and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, the concept sounds really cool. Yeah, I must admit, even with one of my favorite podcasts that I love keeping or that I enjoy all the members of, the Draft Punks, I do not keep up regularly with their podcast. I would love to, but honestly, podcasts, since I can't go walking anymore for seasonal reasons and also pandemic reasons, it's just very difficult for me to find time for podcasts anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm struggling to keep up with everything. I usually need to play a video game in the background, but we'll get to that later. Yeah, so I would love to, though. That concept alone sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely tough as well. Sorry, on you go.
No, so it was something that we have been obviously building out. We're only on our sixth episode. Well, James was on our fifth, and so it's been 2 or 3 months. We do it every other week, and we're building out and sort of feeling out exactly how fast we should go through these things and how much weight we should give each article, but I totally, completely understand that idea. I feel like so much, especially if you're just at home and we've got all our other things to do, right?
Yeah.
That it's very easy to fall behind on a lot of this podcast content that people are making.
For sure.
Yeah, podcasts.
But it sounds cool.
Generally,
anyway.
don't bother with them. A lot of rubbish, if you ask me. Yeah, I mean, we definitely know what you mean, though. In terms of just figuring stuff out, just out of the gate, and being a new podcast and trying to sort of figure out your footing and the direction you want to take. That's definitely can be difficult. Yeah.
I think our first episode was. Sorry, I feel like maybe have a little delay.
There's a little bit of a delay.
Our first episode was an hour and 45 minutes, and then our second one was 2 hours and 45 minutes. And so then we've scaled back down. So it's just like this, like you said, figuring out pacing and all that stuff.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. So yeah, that's that then. So at this point, we sort of talk about things we've been playing over the past week. So since you're guest of honor, Preston, we will start this off by asking you what you've been playing this week.
So this week I have been, as much as I can, playing Kentucky Route Zero. It's been on everyone's top 10 list. Well, anyone that's played it, it's been on their top 10 list this past month when everyone's doing their end of year content. And so I realized, okay, I really got to put some time into it and give it its due. And it really did sink its hooks into me. And I normally try to read before bed, and I've been able to just play Kentucky Route Zero before bed because it is so, there's very much a literary element to its writing. And so I've been I've been really, really enjoying that. And I believe,
Yeah, that's the
Dory,
thing.
you
Like,
said that you haven't played it at all, right?
Yeah, I haven't started it yet. I asked my aunt actually to buy me it for Christmas because I really wanted to play it. And so she just sent me like a $25 Visa gift card or whatever. So I was like, all right, whatever.
Nice.
So I used that, and and actually, of course, Kentucky Route Zero was on sale, so I was able to buy that and Sayonara Wild Hearts. But I'll get to that later.
yeah, two great
Yeah,
games.
it's absolutely
I
excellent.
it's definitely a thing for Kentucky Route Zero for me where, especially with those later episodes, it felt like they were a bit long. Like they'd definitely be the kind of thing like where like you I'd sort of maybe play it in bed and that kind of thing. But yeah, those last episodes are sort of very long, and I feel with episodic games, I feel weird if I don't play them an episode at a time, like a TV show. Like I feel weird
Yeah,
if I
yeah.
stop halfway through an episode. Yeah,
Yeah, that's where I've been. I can play like half an episode a night, and then so I'm only through the end of Act 2, and just cannot wait to see how these things get resolved.
yeah, and like we talked a little bit about it on our Game of the Year discussions, but that game is very much a slow burn. Like
Yes.
it's kind of like it's not exactly fun to play. It's not what I'd call a fun game. But it's
Yeah.
definitely something that I think people should play.
I've never heard this expression before, but it's an eat your greens
Yeah.
kind of game. I've never heard that discussion. I love most vegetables, so that terminology makes no sense to me because I love vegetables, but whatever. And fruits. Yum.
It does feel like you're sort of pushing yourself through a literary classic kind of thing where
Yeah.
it's like you're trying to get, okay, what's the reason this is so loved for its writing and all this stuff. And you can see it and you can appreciate the depth to which it was crafted. But at the same time, you are kind of like, I don't know how much I'm enjoying it, but I can thoroughly appreciate the craftsmanship and the reverence that it has for literature and art and all these different things.
Yeah, it's like the Citizen Kane of video games, really.
Yeah.
Of course. That's the subtitle, actually.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So, is that all you've been playing? Just Kentucky Route Zero?
Yeah, beyond doing a little bit more in terms of Cyberpunk to flesh out a couple other endings that we had talked about. And one thing that I think I did realize, no, I forgot what I realized about Cyberpunk, so never mind. I had a realization this morning or this afternoon that I was like, oh yeah, I want to bring that up tonight. And I've completely forgotten. So that seems to be, I'm really am wondering how much of an lasting impact Cyberpunk's going to have. But I've been playing a little bit of that.
Yeah, for sure. Dory, what about you? What's new?
Yeah, last week I forgot to mention that I started playing Celeste, and I haven't gotten very far. I only beat the first stage after, oh my god, so many deaths, over 150 or something like that. But because it's so flippin' quick, like I counted it, I think you get respawned in like 3 seconds or something like that. It's so flippin' lenient in terms of that. I never feel really punished for dying, which is such an important part. It took me a really long time just to beat the first stage, but I did that. I haven't been playing it this week though. This week I've been playing more Uncharted 4. We unfortunately just left one of my favorite countries and now went to a different country, and now we're going to another place. I'm trying to avoid spoilers, but basically we're going to a very beautiful island. I'm actually really hyped. Because I took a pirate class in college. I mean, I'm still in college, but I took a class on piracy, and so some of the things that they're talking about are things I actually know about. Although the main pirate they talk about this one, Avery, I didn't know a lot about him. He wasn't ever brought up, but there are so many pirates historically. So
yeah, I personally thought it was a bit weird how they made an entire Uncharted game about the act of stealing movies online, but
weird, right? Strange.
Yeah.
yeah, I'm still loving Uncharted, and I've actually begun to form the opinion that this is not just Uncharted 2 but remastered, but it's actually probably better than Uncharted 2. Like, I like the open world type stuff that it flirts with. I love like the characters, I love the story stuff. I do know that there's some pacing and plotting issues when I get to this last section of the game, or I've heard. So I haven't experienced that yet, but I mean, the puzzles I've almost all been able to figure out except for two. And I'm a dumbass when it comes to puzzles. Like, I'll just say it. I am not smart when it comes to puzzles. Like, I'll just be staring at it. The game will be giving me hints left and right, and I'll be like, I don't know. But I'm flipping love this game. Like, this game is great so far. Even if the finish is a little weak, I'll still probably say this is the best Uncharted game. Until maybe I play Lost Legacy. I don't know. But yeah, I played some more Uncharted 4 on my stream. You can find that on my stream, but eventually I'll also just make that into one big highlights video of all my funniest moments. And my partner, Kim, is lovely enough to be in the background often and make very snarky remarks towards my gameplay. So I appreciate her in every way. After that, recently through the MinMax Discord, I got a Game Pass Ultimate 14-day thing, and then I turned it into a month by adding recurring payments, but then I'm just going to cancel it right before. So
Nice.
but don't nobody tell Microsoft. But anyway, I know I'm a traitor to the cause of PSPremiere and all that stuff, blah blah blah. But I have been playing Hypnospace Outlaw, which has been really wacky and fun. If you don't know what that is, it's basically you are in the 90s and you are a moderator of various internet forums, and you are supposed to go through people's pages and find violations of like harassment or unlicensed copyright stuff, which makes me feel weird because I think copyright's really messed up the way it works. But but you know, so very uncomfortable in some spaces. But sometimes it's just harassment or disturbing images. So I've almost made it to chapter 1. And I'm really enjoying myself. It's the concept alone is just makes it worth playing. Like, I don't think the gameplay is anything really to write home about once you boil it down. Like, it's just a puzzle game, but it's just the retro 90s vibes that honestly I like grew up with AIM, like early 2000s internet, not like late 90s internet. So I don't have as much nostalgia for what this game is going for. I still think like it's amazing what they've been able to do, and there's definitely some aspects that I'm like, yeah, that's retro as hell.
Did they add the internet connecting sound effects?
No, they don't have that.
Really slow, choppy down.
I wish. I do remember that though. When I was growing up, I did have to deal with that sometimes. The other thing I've been playing, I played a little bit of it last night, and this is PlayStation related. Is Sayonara Wild Hearts. Funnily enough, my philosophy professor / advisor in college, we talk about video games every now and then, and he's like, I really recommend Sayonara Wild Hearts because he knows I like video games and stuff. And so he told me it was on the PS Store like a few months ago. And so when I bought Kentucky Route Zero on sale, Sayonara Wild Hearts was also on sale for pretty much the perfect amount. So I was like, I'll try that out. So I played about like a half an hour, 45 minutes. It's a quick game. It's basically a very, if you've never played it, it's a very visual feast for your eyes kind of game. It's a rhythm game, but it's not. I mean, it's very lenient. If you die too many times, Queen Latifah, who I swear to God is the voice the narrator, will just ask you if you want to just skip this part or skip the level. So it's very lenient. But it's fun. I mean, the music is great. The graphics are outstanding. The art design is terrific. I've only played 30 to 45 minutes, so I can't say too much about it, but it's not a long game. I've already played a quarter of all the levels. It's really just about going back and getting all golds. I don't think I'll do that, but I only bought it for like $8, so it wasn't a big deal.
Yeah, I have personally tried to go back and get all golds in that game, and let me tell you, that's tough. That is tough. I gave up. I think maybe halfway through the game because they get very difficult. I love that game though. Like, the music is phenomenal, really good. Like, I'm not big on, I guess, pop and that kind of like electronic music and stuff, but that's good shit.
Yeah, it's good. I have been lucky enough to get a handful of silver so far, but every time I get silver, I'm like, yeah, I'm satisfied there. I don't want to push it.
Good with
I
second.
yes, that's right. Hey, second best is still better than the third best.
Yeah.
I'm happy with silver, honestly. And if I ever get a gold, I'll be ecstatic. But that's fine. There are definitely another reason I'm playing it is there are some LGBT like sort of overtones and sort of the stylings, and that's been commented on by the video game commentators. I don't know what else to say. Analysts, writers, journalists, whatever. People who write about video games have also noted that there are some LGBT themes throughout it, specifically in like the sort of ways that the main character is fighting all these sort of female bikers and stuff like that. I don't know if there's anything to it, but that was part of what drew me to the game. Was like, oh yeah, it's the and I say this positively, it's the lesbian biker game where you have really colorful visuals and you fight other people through the sound of music. So yeah, it's a great game no matter what it's about. Yeah, I think that's all. I have been playing a little bit of Hades, but I think my time with Hades is starting to come to a close. Yeah, I don't know if I brought this up last week, but I don't want to repeat myself. But
I don't know. I think you brought it up every week, to be honest with you.
Well, it's what I'm playing. I don't know what to tell you, James. I'm sorry. Stop doing a what you're playing episode segment.
Fair enough. Me personally, I'm replaying Red Dead Redemption 2. Have you guys played Red Dead Redemption 2? The biggest game release of 2018? No? Sad face. Okay.
Fantastic.
It really is. Oh God, it's so incredible. The one thing I always liked about it, and I always remembered I liked about it, but sort of forgot how good it was like there's just the stuff around camp, like those small interactions with all the characters. Like there's a bit in chapter 4 where like a character's gone missing and you get them back, and like everyone celebrates and everyone's sort of gathering around the campfire singing songs and everything, and there's just the way those characters sort of interact with each other, and they really sort of paint the picture that those characters like are so familiar with each other and have these relationships and everything, and it's just so fantastically executed. And also like those big set piece moments and everything, like it's just a fantastic game. I'm really enjoying going through it again, although and also the thing is, on the replay, I think this is more noticeable for me on the replay than it was on the initial playthrough, but it's very slow. Like there's a lot of horse riding in that game. So if you don't enjoy just riding from point A to point B on your horse, then you're probably not going to have a good time with that game at all. Like even beyond the stuff where you're riding with other characters and you're having like a conversation and stuff, there is a lot of like riding to missions by yourself where there's no dialogue, no music or anything. You're just sort of enjoying it and taking it in, I guess.
Yeah, and I think they do. They sort of like they do that really well against the big action pieces, just like the first game where you'll have that long ride with someone if you're starting a mission, and they'll sort of talk to you, and you'll get more backstory and more interaction with that character, and then you get the big set piece, and then you can choose that quietude if you want, or you can jump right into and I guess there is the fast travel system, right?
Yeah, but I never use it. And I don't think it's like fully. I don't think it's like I don't think it's a proper like fast travel system as well, where you just you can be anywhere and select where you want to go on the map. I think you have to be at camp, and then you can fast travel from there. And then you get like wagons you can take from from train stations and stuff like that. But yeah, like what was nuts to me as well, like one of the missions sort of I remember most fondly from the start of that game. It's like you're sort of riding out with Charles, who is of Native American descent, and you're sort of riding out to go and hunt a bison, and you sort of find out that people have been like killing these bison needlessly and just like sort of for sport and stuff, and like so you just find a bunch of dead bison. Like he gets really angry about it, and it's like this great sort of dive into his character and like figuring out like why this upsets him so much, and yeah, like stuff like that. And the thing about that mission that I didn't realize until replaying it is that that's a totally optional mission. That's like one of the camp activities that you can go and do. But it's like it's designed like a fully fledged like story mission, but it's just something you could easily miss if you're not paying attention, because it's not even like you get these missions around the map that are kind of like side missions where you go and interact with strangers. It's not even like one of those. It's just a little icon at camp that you can choose to go hunting with them at some point in the story, but you could easily miss it, which is just nuts to me.
Yeah, I don't think I ever did that mission. I mean, that sounds like it would be really impactful. Do you like come across the corpses and skeletons and stuff?
Yeah, yeah. So you sort of like track
Wow.
these guys who have been doing this, and then you've spoilers ahead for this sort of side mission in the game, but like you catch up with them, and like you find them, and Charles gets really pissed off, and he like kills one of them and stuff. So it's like interesting to see how he as a character reacts to that sort of stuff, and I think that gives more weight to something that like that game. That's something that game is really good at, and that's another example of that. Is like just really well written characters and that sort of stuff. So yeah, but it is like it's so easy to miss because there's a bunch of it's like you can go hunting with characters, you can go fishing with characters, you can rob homesteads with characters, and it's all like camp activities that appear only at a certain time of the day, at a certain time of the campaign. So I've probably missed a ton of them, but yeah. So yeah.
How many hours do you think you're into this second one?
Into Red Dead Redemption 2?
Yeah, this second playthrough.
Oh, the second playthrough, yeah. I'm probably 30 hours into it now, something like that.
Okay.
I think I'm about halfway through the main campaign, not counting the epilogue. Yeah, it's a long game, but it's a good game. Yeah, so that's what I've been playing, and that is a fun game. So what we have now is some updates on previously announced release dates for PlayStation games. Hey Dory, what games do you want to run us through? Some games that have been delayed, because there's a lot of them.
Oh, I am all too happy to. Pragmata, that Kojima-ass looking Kojima game that isn't a Kojima game, it's been delayed to 2023.
The one that's actually from Capcom. Yeah.
That's right. Good job, Capcom Award. Yeah, Pragmata, that weird-ass game with the astronaut, and then they're going into space. You remember the one. And
he picks up the little girl and takes the little girl up into space?
Yeah, right? I'm pretty sure she's dead. Yeah. That's been delayed to 2023. Previously, it was 2022. aka, I don't know if Pragmata is ever coming out, but God, I hope it does, because it looks absolutely bonkers, and I love it. Ghostwire Tokyo, which a game was that I was initially very interested in. I don't really care for the way it's presented right now. And Stray, which is a game I want to buy for my partner, is coming to October this year. She loves cats, and I love Cyberpunk. Not the game, sorry. And Project Athia is coming January 22nd, January 2022. Excuse me, I'm misreading that. I still have no idea what Project Athia is about. I thought it was just a code name for Final Fantasy 15, but I guess it's not.
It's a code name for some other
is that
Square
also
Enix
Square
game.
Enix?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And the interesting thing about those to note is that I don't think any of them had like official confirmation about these new release dates, but they were sort of just it was these dates at the end of a PlayStation trailer, like in the small print at the end of the trailer, it had them all listed out as these release dates. And there's a new version of that trailer uploaded supposedly that removes all those dates. So I guess take that stuff with a grain of salt. But there have also been some more release dates that have been pushed back. So I mean, there's probably going to be a lot more throughout the year. Let's be honest. But far, the most immediate ones are Hogwarts Legacy has been delayed to 2022. Kena Bridge of Spirits Kena has been delayed to March, or it's coming out in March 2021. I don't know if that's a delay. They already said it was coming out 2021. I don't think there was a release date specified for that, but there you go.
I don't think there was either.
Solar Ash, a game that I do not recall personally, is coming out June 2021, and Little Devil Inside, a game that I'm looking forward to, is coming out July
Yeah.
2021, and also Riders Republic was delayed to later this year. That's that Ubisoft game that looks kind of like a sequel to Steep, except it's not in the Alps. So
Yeah, it seems to
are
be
you
more
guys?
open to like other extreme sports. Like it's got like downhill biking. I don't know. It just has a lot more to it rather
Yep,
than just
definitely.
snow sports.
It kind
Yeah.
of seems like they're sort of they know that that Steep wasn't that great, and they're giving it
Yeah.
another shot. So yeah, any of
Look,
these sort
James,
of delays stand out to you guys?
as long as Hood Outlaws and Legends doesn't get delayed, I think we're all going to be happy. Everyone's looking forward to Hood
Oh, yeah.
Outlaws and Legends.
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Well, if that's that, then do you guys are you guys particularly sad about any of these delays? I mean, none of them were really concrete, right?
Yeah, I mean, none of these were concrete, just like you said. And honestly, I mean, Ghostwire Tokyo coming out in October makes perfect sense to me because that's spoopy.
Yeah.
Stray, I'm just happy it's coming out this year. Honestly, it looks pretty interesting. Pragmata, I don't know what the hell's happened with that, or Athia. I'm very curious about Hogwarts Legacy being delayed. In my head, either that's a COVID delay or this game was going to be terrible if it came out this year. We need way more time to work on it. Delay. I don't know. It may be a mix of both. My pessimism about the Harry Potter universe, thanks to its awful, terrible, no good author, is just at an all-time high. So I don't know what's at culprit here. For the people who want that game to be good, I'm glad it's getting delayed. And
and
yeah,
I know that they've already sort of distanced themselves a little bit from her recently, but do you think it might be just some sort of like let's put some distance in the timeline too?
It could be. I mean, I don't know. She never ceases to be awful on Twitter, so I don't know how much good that's going to do. I really bet it's a COVID / we need more time on this. Please, oh God, give us more time kind of situation, which is a common thing. It's not just for this game, obviously. I'm happy Ken is coming out so soon because that's awesome. I was already thinking about getting a PS5 sometime this year, so if Ken is really good, I mean, I might get it sooner. I don't know.
It's also coming out on PS4,
and
that's right. Really? I forgot about that. Sorry, Preston. What? Go ahead.
No, I was going to say Kenna and Little Devil Inside were both ones where I was like, okay, I kind of want a PS5 for these. If I'm going to miss the launch lineup, those would be the ones that this summer would probably convince me to get them.
I honestly keep exactly. And I honestly keep forgetting like what games come out for PS5 and PS4. Like, I think I only found out like a couple weeks ago that Sackboy: Big Adventure comes out for both PS5 and PS4. I think it was. Oh. And I don't even remember hearing about that, but I think that's the case. Yeah. I haven't double checked the facts on that one, but
that is correct. It has come out for both. I think I very, very few of the actual launch lineup games where I think, I think Demon Souls. If you count, I get Demon Souls and I guess Spider-Man Remastered. If you count that, are the only ones that I can think of that were actually PS5 exclusives. But yeah. Anyway. I mean,
did y'all see
they're probably going to be the tweet? Sorry,
did y'all see the tweete from Jason Schreier?
I see a lot of tweets. Yeah,
that was the tweet from Jason Schreier that was saying that these are the first of many, many, many to come or whatever in terms of game delays, and so I mean we'll see how.
Yeah, that's probably just him. I think that's probably just him sort of speculating based on his knowledge, but he's got a lot of knowledge for sure. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem far-fetched to imagine that we're going to have a lot of delays this year. It might be a slower year than we think it'll be at the moment. Because, I mean, currently I'm getting excited for Ratchet & Clank and Gran Turismo 7 and stuff. I think the chances that Gran Turismo 7 actually come out this year are slim, and slimmer still are the chances that the God of War sequel actually comes out this year. Though I do think Ratchet & Clank is a lock because Insomniac has proven very good at not delaying games and getting them out on
Yeah,
time.
I agree with you, James. I think Ratchet and Clank is pretty. They've been pretty generally solid about the launch area since it started, and they haven't made any signs that they're stepping back from that. So Insomniac has that good record to their name. So I agree with you.
Yeah. Righto. Also, there was some more Returnal gameplay footage this week. They've been dropping a lot of this stuff. I haven't watched any of it because I'm not, if I'm honest with you, I'm not particularly interested in that game. But Dory, you've seen it, right?
Yeah, it's weird because Returnal is definitely not up my alley at all. It's a roguelite. I know I've talked a lot about Hades, but that's a special exception. Generally, I'm not into roguelites. I hate dying in games, but I will say what this game has got going for it. It looks pretty as hell. The combat looks really fun. It looks really varied. I don't know how well I'll like its mechanics around dying or anything like that. Obviously, as the questionable name of the game sort of implies, you'll be dying a lot. So I don't know how much I like that, but it does sound cool. It looks like you can have little parasites on your body that can give you special benefits, but also special detriments at the same time. You can pick up certain weapons, and you can also there's like one weapon that like caused a spike to come up from the ground and like impale enemies. That was kind of cool. The gameplay looks really fun and the graphics look amazing. Preston, I think you looked at this too, maybe. Did you look
Yeah,
at
I
this?
did. I was watching it. I watched it a little bit last night whenever they first revealed it, and it does look. It's got that bullet hell shooter, but in a 3D format to where it's just things are flying everywhere. Which this company, oh my gosh, I can't think of the original name or the game that they came out with.
Housemarque. Oh, it was
Yes,
Resogun.
Resogun, and that was of course a bullet hell game, and they're taking it into 3D, and it looks good. I do wonder how many. So they showed off like I don't know 5 or 6 different gameplay changing, like Dory was talking about, parasites and artifacts and things. That I wonder how many that they're actually going to have to keep that gameplay loop interesting, because so much has clearly been put into the art assets and just I mean like you said, it looks gorgeous.
Yeah.
And so I wonder how much they put into the gameplay and how long it's supposed to last, and like what does a completed loop look like? Is a completed loop an hour, or is it 5 hours and you just have to I've just been really curious about that.
Yeah.
But it looks good. I didn't like the voiceover, but
yeah.
me.
No, if it turns out good, I'll probably check it out. I mean, it looks alright. I like third person shooters, so why not? Okay, how about this then? The Last of Us HBO show, just announced today on the day of recording, mind you, has gotten a new director whose name I will now attempt to pronounce and probably butcher. Kantemir Balagov, who is supposedly the director of a movie or a TV show or something called Beanpole, which I've never seen nor heard of. Have either of you seen Beanpole?
I still haven't seen it, but I did watch the trailer on this news to say, okay, what's the tone of Beanpole, and is it the tone that I want to see from a Last of Us game? And it looks like the tone matches what I want to see in a Last of Us game. So
That's good.
I think
that bodes well.
Do fine. Yeah,
I'm interested for them still to announce the casting, because I know a lot of people are sort of asking for that guy who was in Game of Thrones to be Joel, and like that seems like good casting to me, but I have to think like I'm not a casting director, so I don't know if he would actually be any good as Joel. So I kind of feel like I just hope, my main hope is that they have a good casting director and they just get the right casting. Not, I don't have any particular hopes for who they cast, because chances are whoever I think is a good cast for that show might not actually be a good cast for that show. But I feel like we've sort of I feel like we brought this up a couple times already, but Preston, since you're a guest and you have not been on the show before, who would you cast as Joel and Ellie on a TV show for The Last of Us?
Oh, as Ellie?
As Joel and Ellie,
Or
either.
Oh, Joel and Ellie. Oh my gosh. So I just watched Little Women on your recommendation.
Hey.
And so there's a recency bias, and I don't know if this would actually be a good casting, but Saoirse Ronan, is that how you say her name?
Oh,
I have no idea.
She's awesome. I can't remember her name.
Yeah, she's great.
And
Yeah, she's
I
great.
feel like she may I guess she would be old for Ellie. So maybe
I would say so. Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe that wouldn't quite work out, but
I thought you were gonna. I thought you'd suggest Timothy Chalamet as Joel.
I really need to see him with the beard first before I make that.
Yeah.
I don't.
Sure.
And, I mean, we have Tom Holland as a young Nathan Drake right now, and
unfortunately,
so hey, you know, bring in Timothy Chalamet as a young Joel. Let's do it. I'm gonna say it.
Oh my god, the most controversial take.
Yeah, give it to Robert Pattinson as well. Let's make him Joel and Batman.
There we go.
Sure.
Yeah.
2 Joels. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Timothy Chalamet. I like that.
Good. That is exciting news. I'm excited to see how that show. I'm sure they'll nail it because there's a lot of talent behind that, and the fact that Neil Druckmann's involved in the show as well, I think bodes well, particularly.
And I think something else that's important to note is that they still have the executive producer and the writer of Chernobyl, and he's going to be one of the head writers on this. And
Craig
Chernobyl
Mazin,
was. Yeah, he's just as much about the writing as it was the visuals. So I'm happy there.
Yeah, definitely. Right, Dory, there's some fucking wrestling news that you wanted to cover that I have no idea where to start with. So take us away.
Hello, it's Dory here, and I'm here to tell you about all that wrestling shit that no one pays attention to because no one cares about wrestling anymore, even though you should, because it's a great time to be a wrestling fan. Anyway, I'm sorry. I just recently got back into wrestling myself in 2020, so I'm all aflutter about this. All right, some background information. All Elite Wrestling is one of the major companies, organizations competing with WWE right now, or WWF if you remember the 90s. And earlier, and they're competing with them for the ratings and all that stuff, and they're actually doing very well for themselves, but that's kind of because WWE is just abysmal these days in terms of the ratings. So AEW has their own game division, and they have been working on a video game for a while now. Kenny Omega, who is arguably one of the best wrestlers in the world right now, and arguably a huge nerd. His finisher is called One Winged Angel. And he has and almost nobody ever kicks out of it. It's great.
I don't know if that's arguably a huge nerd. Like, that's a concrete.
Yes. It's not very arguable. I was being generous.
Yeah.
And then some of his other moves are like V Trigger from Chrono Trigger,
Wow.
and stuff like that. He's a huge nerd. He is one of the vice presidents behind the video game section, as well as one of their AEW champion. And he has confirmed that the game will feature online multiplayer, possibly with cross-platform play, as well as create a wrestler mode. And the game would also have a campaign mode, but lack the general manager mode that other wrestling titles like the old SmackDown vs. Raw installments did. Omega said that I can say right now that we're not sure of how many wrestlers will be available upon release, but one thing I can say is that the number of wrestlers in the AEW is growing all the time, and the roster will reflect that. He also said that the team is hoping for the game to drop in late 2021. But, and this is the important part, I don't know if 2K is listening right now, but for any 2K bigwigs, he doesn't want to rush things. He says, I don't want to rush it, so I don't want to make a promise about the release date. I want the release version to be good. And I think that's really the most important part here, because good Lord, 2K has just done horribly. with the recent games. I know they're not completely at fault. I know the people there, I'm sure they try to work hard and they have to push out a freaking game every year. And that cannot be easy. So I don't envy them. And, I'm not trying to put all the blame at their feet or anything like that. But I'm really glad for the space that AEW has to work with. One last thing is that he says that the gameplay will be a combination of arcade and simulation style. He says he wants the players to feel like when you're doing the moves that you're controlling the actual player wrestling characters. But he also wants the speed of arcade play, moves, countering systems, submissions, AI. He wants that but he still wants it to feel like if you were actually in the ring with your opponent. So he wants a cool little mix. Also worth noting that AEW has obtained the lead guy behind No Mercy, the WWF game back in the 90s. That was one of the biggest N64 wrestling games of all time. One of the best-selling, best reviewed. So they're really going retro for this to make sure it works. Like I said, Omega is a huge nerd. I have decent confidence that this game is actually going to be decent or good, and that I will actually play a wrestling game for the first time since SmackDown versus Raw 07 or whatever that game was, 06 or something.
Yeah, I think just having him say that, like, we're going to push it out shows that he understands the video game industry and exactly what people get upset with.
Yeah.
And so probably has a good lead.
I will also point out, if people are more interested, and we'll probably say something if anything else huge happens, but I just want to talk about this now. But they do have an AEW video game channel where Kenny Omega talks about the production process and how that's going for them. So they're pretty transparent. I don't know how transparent. I haven't checked out the page, so I'm not saying like the code is open source. Like, I'm not saying anything wild like that. But they are from what I understand, fairly transparent in terms of the production process and how things are looking. And this interview also spells good things for an AEW game. So I'm excited as a wrestling fan. And now back to our normal show where no one cares about wrestling.
That was all gibberish to me. Okay, so now we come to a new segment that we're calling Screenshot of the Week. I'm going to show our panel here a video game screenshot that I found this week. So here it is, guys.
Nice.
Wow, that's terrific.
Yeah.
All right. So also this week, Machine Games is making an Indiana Jones game, and it's executive produced by Todd Howard. Now, listen, I know that Bethesda was bought by Microsoft, so this might not necessarily be PlayStation news, but they haven't said yet whether it'll be an Xbox exclusive or not. So it might come to PlayStation. So fuck it, I'm including it because it's big news. So. Are either of you guys big Indiana Jones fans at all, or big Todd Howard fans?
Yeah, not big Todd Howard fan, but I liked the Indiana Jones movies when I first watched them. I think I tried to rewatch the first one, and I honestly got a little bored. But I haven't tried watching the other ones, and I know that's sacrilege, and I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. But the thing is, and to prove I've watched an Indiana Jones movie, I'm going to make this joke. If this video game is really good, it'll belong in a museum. So,
and that's the end of our show, everybody. We'll see you next week.
But seriously, I did hear that from Bethesda did do an interview where I think they said that they weren't going to make any Xbox exclusives, and that it was just to give them more leverage towards producing games and not necessarily for exclusives. That was my understanding. That may have just been about, something else.
I don't think they said that in so many words. I think it was implied.
Yeah.
So
I think they haven't taken an official stance yet. And a lot of that initial around the purchase was all about like the game's coming out within the next year or two. They were very much like, no, you don't need to worry about those. But anything that's like further out, they've been very cagey on the exact plans for exclusivity.
Yeah, and even if they do have a plan for those right now, I mean, plans could change. I guess maybe they'll see it fit that they need more exclusives and that kind of thing. So who knows? But yeah, I am personally pissed off about this news. I don't like it. I don't like it one bit.
Really?
Really. This is probably a hot take, but as much as I like the Indiana Jones films, like I like them fine. They're not. I don't think they're amazing. I'm not a big Steven Spielberg fan, but even still, I'm kind of, I don't know, the idea of like Disney pushing further into video games, sort of forcing their way in there, just irritates me slightly. Like they
Yeah.
seem to be really making a big push into video games, like by sort of making deals with all these developers and saying, hey, come and make games on our franchises that we never change and just keep, milking for money and stuff. Yeah, I know it's like yeah, I don't know. Like I know it's like, oh, let people enjoy things, but I don't want to be a downer, but I don't know. It just
Well, I think
it
that
rubs me
was
the wrong way.
part of the press announcement behind all this. I think the one line that really stood out to me was that they made a point to say that Lucas Games has final say on all future products. Like they made sure that that was in there for everyone to know. Like, hey, we're gonna shut this stuff down if we. And so I just found that weird because you're talking about a studio control that normally people don't want to hear. They don't want to hear that studio is going to be really what's controlling, not the developers.
Yeah.
In a weird way. And I don't know, maybe if that was like they're saying Disney doesn't have final control, but that's not going to be true. I mean, who knows? I can't exactly
Yeah,
speak for that.
it
But
is weird, but it's that sort of dynamic of like it just feels weird. It feels as if like Disney's sort of seen that there's money in video games, and all of a sudden they're making
yeah.
these big pushes to sort of, hey, let's force our franchises into video games. And like, I'm not opposed to licensed games. I think the video game industry is strongest when it's working on its own IP and its own original ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the thing. Like, I made a tweet about this as well. But like, people want like Remedy Games to make a Doctor Strange game because they played
Yeah.
Control and they thought, hey, that's kind of like a Doctor Strange game. But like, the thing that gets me is what's wrong with Control? Like that's like a Doctor Strange game where Remedy's made it from the ground up. It's their own ideas and it's their own twist on it. If anything, I think a Doctor Strange game from Remedy would be worse than Control because it's going to be much of the
Mm-hmm.
same thing, just with less of their sort of spin on it. With they have less control over the direction they can take with the game.
I think with something like Dory, I think as a DM, you can back this up, but whenever you are working with someone else's source material and you're trying to build a world out of it, it's a lot. You don't feel that personal ownership quite as much as whenever you get to build your own game and your own world and stories that the players then invest themselves in. And I think it follows that same line.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying. To be clear, DM here means Dungeon Master D&D stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I definitely feel that. I mean, when I'm, the two campaigns I have to Dungeon Master right now, and I promise this is relevant, but are both campaigns that are done by Wizards of the Coast, or the head studio in this case, kind of that. In that situation, and so it definitely feels like less my world because I can't homebrew anything. Or if I homebrew sort of relationships between all these different campaigns or sessions and stuff, I have to work within the limits of Waterdeep, or I have to work within the limits of whatever my campaign is. Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel that. I don't mind licensed game at all, and I think that Disney has been already I remember playing those really old school Toy Story games for the PC.
Oh, yeah.
When I was a kid. So, I mean, Disney has been seeing dollar signs for video games for decades at this point. So I don't know so much that they're forcing their way into the industry, but I mean, I share similar concerns about, I also like original IPs. I also like it when studios take a chance and swing big, or even when studios double down on an original IP, like with The Last of Us Part 2, and they take big narrative swings. I like that stuff. And so obviously I want to see more of that. I don't really want to see Remedy do a Doctor Strange game or anything like that, nor would I want Naughty Dog to do a grizzled Wolverine game or something, right? So I or a Logan game, I think would be more befitting of them. And I still need to see that movie. But anyway, yeah. But anyway, so it's all just to say I kind of agree with you and I kind of disagree with you, James. That's what I'm getting at.
Sure, that's pretty much how it goes. But yeah, I mean, they also announced like this week that Ubisoft Massive is making a Star Wars game, which is going to be directed by Julian Garrity. I probably butchered that name as well, who's the director on The Division 2 and The Crew. It's also going to be using the Snowdrop engine. It's very early in development. It's going to be story-driven and open world, which basically means it's going to be a Ubisoft game. And yeah, basically what this means is that, I guess what this means is that the EA deal isn't going to continue past, the EA Star Wars deal isn't going to continue past 2023 when it expires. That'll be it. Although EA will still be making Star Wars games, I assume it just means that more companies will be able to do it. They won't have an exclusivity deal anymore, which I see as a positive and a negative, because it means we'll get better Star Wars games. But also, I'm not a big Star Wars fan either, and also I'm not a big Disney fan, so I'm kind of like, just the thing is, right? Like when you're the CEO of a company, I have to imagine when you're the CEO of a developer or a publisher, and you get an offer from Disney to make the new Star Wars game, and you've got like some new IP that somebody in the studio has whipped up and they're testing out in the early stages, and it's like, yeah, this looks kind of promising, but you've got that on one hand, and you've got the Star Wars deal potential on the other hand. I have to imagine like you go for the Star Wars thing every time, just because that's guaranteed profit and that's guaranteed to like keep your company afloat. So yeah, I think that like I think that Disney making such a big push into video games is like just harmful. It could be potentially harmful for the rate at which we get new IP as an industry and get new fresh ideas as an industry. And I know there's a lot of sequels, but I think those are always sequels to IP that are created in video games first and foremost. Like we get The Last of Us Part 2 and, you know, a new God of War game and stuff. But I still feel like that's better than a game based on a fucking 40-year-old movie, you know?
Yeah, and I think like if you look at how they handle their movies and the directors that they get and producers that they get, Taika Waititi, he produced a lot of great comedies, so they pulled him in for Thor Ragnarok, and he did a great job, and it was wonderful in terms of he was able to shift away Thor, and now he's just locked in, right? And with that, there's time to still do some passion projects on the side, but you got to imagine with a games company that it takes so much longer and so much in terms of production. If they lock in a good team, that team is locked in, and they're not going to be able to just go off and work on some other. And so you lose a very good, big, talented part of a lot of major companies that could make something else.
Yeah. And maybe that's a good thing for like, maybe that is a good thing for Star Wars fans as well. Like, oh, there's your favorite developers making a Star Wars game. But I guess for me personally, that's always going to be a negative, just because I get so bored with Star Wars personally, and all the other Disney stuff. And Disney stuff is just so bland, if you ask me.
Yeah, so I mean, James and I are coming from very different point of views in terms of aesthetics with Disney. I mean, I, as someone who just watched The Mandalorian, thought it was great, and is trying to finally watch the Clone series, the Star Wars: The Clone Wars series, not the movie, and definitely not Attack of the Clones. I really enjoy their stuff. The thing I worry about here is, and I do have concerns, similar or like James, I do have concerns, but my concerns are maybe slightly different, or maybe they're just the same, but worded differently. But I just have a concern with Disney monopolizing media. That's my main concern here is them. Like, I think the point Preston made is pretty close to something I would echo, is that, I don't mind Taika Waititi taking his talents to Disney working on films. I just have an issue with Disney kind of keeping him there and not letting him work on other things.
Right.
And that's because, I mean, I've watched, he had this earlier film that I don't remember what it's called, that was based in New Zealand. And it was a beautiful movie. And I would love more of those movies, and Thor Ragnarok, because I love Thor Ragnarok. I think it's one of the best Marvel movies. So before we go off on a tangent about Disney and Marvel and whatever else and Star Wars, I just want to say back to Ubisoft or not Ubisoft, but EA, Ubisoft, whatever else. I think this is a real mixed bag. I think it's great that EA doesn't have exclusivity, because good Lord, does EA suck on a lot of fronts. But like, On the other hand, is it so great that Ubisoft is now going to do it?
Yeah,
I don't know. I
right.
feel like that's like that's like the fans getting beaten with a big stick and then like asking for no sticks, but then getting smaller sticks. Does that metaphor make any sense?
I like that metaphor.
Like that's what I feel right now as a Star Wars fan. I specifically requested to not be beaten with sticks, not slightly smaller sticks and less aggressive. You know, I just feel like Ubisoft is not a bit as big of an improvement as we'd want. But on the other hand, the exclusivity deal being finally brought away from EA is great, and I hope more companies are able to do stuff with Star. I mean, does anyone remember when Star Wars, multiple companies made them, and we got all those different flipping games in the 90s and early mid 2000s? It was great. I mean, there was some crap. There was definitely some crap, but it was a great amount of variety, and I think that's what people appreciate.
And I think that that's something where like the Ubisoft Star Wars game is going to be good to great, and it could be spectacular, but it won't be unique. I feel like the likelihood that it's unique is pretty slim, and so that's the frustrating part. Is if this license is given out to smaller studios that would do something a little bit more experimental, that would be a lot more interesting than just here's another Ubisoft open world game that I love those games. am interested in this Star Wars game, but I would like to see it used elsewhere by other companies.
For sure.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like for me, I don't think it's a case of being beaten with smaller sticks. I think it's a case of being beaten with a different flavor of stick. Because whereas before you had EA, who was sort of putting these predatory like microtransactions and these bad practices into the games, Ubisoft, I feel like they're not going to do that as much, but they're going to have they're going to make them Ubisoft games with a Star Wars coat of paint. It's going to be like this game is going to be an open world game with light RPG elements. It's going to be like Far Cry. It's going to be like Assassin's Creed, what have you. Which is, I don't know. I mean, maybe that works with Star Wars. I just think, I mean, I've said my piece really on Disney and stuff, but
it's going to be cookie cutter, and I don't think there's any two ways about it. But I think that there is room for Star Wars fans to enjoy it, and I mean, honestly, I think it is a good thing to have, because I don't think we have this kind of. I think the closest we have is KOTOR, right? And KOTOR is not really an open world game at all.
Yeah.
And that's probably, I think, the closest Star Wars ever got to an open world game. So I'm glad that Star Wars fans, and myself kind of included, I'm kind of a burnt out Star Wars fan, but despite me finally watching Mando and everything else I mentioned, I only watched it because my partner really wanted to watch it. I'm like, all right, I've heard it's really good. But yeah, I'm glad Star Wars fans are getting an open world game finally, because there's not one on the table. And heck, if someone's going to make the open world game, I guess it's openworldmedia.inc, right? Or whatever. Like it's just it makes sense, but it's cookie cutter. I know it will be.
My last little piece on this is this is like the first announcement that sort of announces that it's no longer exclusive to EA, and so I'm sure there's going to be plenty more to come, which on Smithy's part is not a good thing, but we could find
I think they said they've got more announcements coming this year. The new Lucasfilm games is what they call it. Lucasfilm Games is what they're called, by the way, which is
that's weird.
A silly name if you ask me, but I mean, that's the thing. If you ask me what video games are good at, is sort of having these big AAA games that have and this is up for debate. This is subjective completely. Like it's all about like what you consider to be art and all that. But like what video games are good at in my mind is sort of having these big blockbuster games that everyone buys and everyone cares about, like The Last of Us, like Red Dead Redemption, but they have like something to say. They are interesting. They're these interesting stories, and they have some artistic premise. They have some sort of weight in that regard, in my mind. And with movies, what you have those movies that are sort of artistic and they have something to say and so on. And then you have Disney films, and the Disney films are all anyone talks about. And those are the only ones that get big attention, like mainstream attention. And I like that video games aren't like that. And I'm worried that with stuff like this, that's the direction that we're heading in.
That's exactly what Scorsese always said about the movie industry. That was the big argument, like what, a year ago, 2 years ago, where he said that same thing, where it's just like Disney has caused the removal of art from mainstream movies, and that was his sort of a very similar style argument. And that I agree, and apparently Scorsese might too. You should hit him up. I don't know.
Yeah, that's so. Next week's guest is going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I remember that was a big controversy. A lot of people didn't agree with him, and he was saying basically they were like roller coaster movies. Disney movies were like roller coaster rides and stuff like that. And hot take, I agreed with him. I think they are, and there's nothing wrong with roller coaster rides. I just think it's a little sad that those are the ones that get the most attention.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Anyhow, also this week there was a video. I mean, there's been a lot of controversy obviously with Cyberpunk. We've covered it extensively on this podcast. But yeah, they released a new video with the co-founder of the company, basically outlining from their perspective what went wrong with the launch and all that sort of stuff. Whether you sort of think he's full of it or not is, I guess, a matter of perspective. I was neither here nor there, really. Preston, I know you watched the video as well, right? Any thoughts on that?
I mean, my thought on it is we'll see it. Proof is in the pudding. Whatever you have to say, I did kind of I agree with what some people are saying, where Sean Murray, instead of speaking, and I get the idea of being open and communicating with your player base, of course, but it was just like nose to the grindstone. Let's get this thing fixed before we come out and do this big. But I also understand this is much bigger in terms of its publicity and its backlash, and it got removed from the PlayStation Store.
I mean, it was on New York Times, for God's sakes. It was on the New York Times. You don't get much bigger than that.
Right. And so he has to say something.
Yeah.
And but it doesn't mean much. It's empty words unless it's proven.
Yeah, there were some people who in the video were like, "Oh, it's so great to see someone," because IGN reposted it, right? And I didn't watch the video because I couldn't be bothered. But I'm absolutely cynical and completely bitter about CDPR, a company I never had any particular opinions about and never particularly cared one way or the other, and they've just completely tarnished their own image for me. But whatever, I'm just one person. But I will say this, I thought it was very funny. A lot of people in the IGN comments, usually one of the most negative places on the internet, by the way. Never go there. Don't be like me. Don't go there. But I was very curious what people are saying. And people were like, it's so wonderful how he's taking, responsibility. More people in the game industry should do that. I'm like, this is the bare minimum. Bare minimum. He's taking responsibility for the shitty launch. Oh, what else should he do? Blame the people in the basement? What? So I'm just like, this is just bare minimum shit, y'all. We've just been dealing with corporations not doing the bare minimum for so long that when they do the bare minimum of saying, hey, we fucked up, this is our fault, we at the top take responsibility for it, not the workers, not the people at the bottom. People are like, wow, that's so brave and awesome of them. It's like, no, it's not. It is emphatically not. It is just the bare freaking minimum. And I'm sorry again, I'm very bitter about this whole thing. And it just
that's fair enough as well, because you do get a lot of the time when this happens at the bigger publishers and everything, the bigger companies, they're sort of a lot of the time they're just people will be sending death threats to the developers and stuff like that, and the big wigs will be like, okay, which is a shame, but they'll be just in their money showers or whatever, just not caring the world. Anyway, I think the big news from this though was that the next gen versions, I don't know when they said initially the next gen versions of the game were coming, but they are now coming in the second half of 2021, and apparently the free DLCs for the game are coming first, which is odd, but I imagine they've got different teams working on the DLCs and the next gen versions.
Sure. And the free DLCs seem to be if they're comparing them, they're saying it's much like the Witcher's free DLCs, so it'll be probably outfits, new armor. Maybe they'll do finally put the character customization into the world, as you can go to a place and customize your character, which is insane to me that it's still not in there. And
maybe the free DLC will be that they fix the game.
Yeah, right.
The free DLC is called "We Fixed the Game." It runs like it was always supposed to.
It's patch 1.0.
Yeah.
This was in the alpha. It's the whole time.
Yeah, they did. No, they did release a whole roadmap which you can go and look up, which has also some information on patches that are coming before the free DLCs. So they're going to be doing hot fixes and patches. Supposedly they've got some coming very soon. It's going to take them a while to fix that game, though. Jesus Christ! If you've played it, you know.
I just want to give a real quick shout out to a hot fix players can do right now for Cyberpunk. You can just like go to the game. You can press one of those little buttons over there. The right click button or whatever button you got, the options button, and go to remove game, and that'll remove a lot of the issues right there. So
you want to deal with any of it anymore?
Yeah.
All right, I'm sorry. I'm being so negative. I apologize.
That's okay. That's okay. Yeah. So I mean, I look forward to them fixing the game. I've already finished it, but
yeah, I honestly hope they really do fix the game, and that the player base. This is what I hope for pretty much any game. Is that the player base is happy, and that that we have another. We shouldn't be having these situations, but insofar as we do have them, it's another Sean Murray situation where they turn. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name of the game for some reason.
No Man's Sky.
No Man's Sky, thank you. They turn it, they No Man's Sky it. They bring it back and they make it better than ever. That would be lovely. Honestly, I really hope that for the player base. It's not for me, but I hope they do improve it.
That is what I do wonder about as well. Is the player base turned on them so quickly when the game launched? They were the player base were excusing everything right up until launch, and they got the game in their hands.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then the thing I have to wonder is have they lost those people? Is it going to be like a Last of Us Part 2 situation where people's minds are already made up, no matter how good the game ends up being, or if they fix it or whatever? Or can they do like a Sean Murray, like No Man's Sky, Hello Games thing, where the players, they fix the game and then it has a dedicated player base that loves it and loves the company and everything like that, and totally turn it around?
Yeah, I remember seeing one article where it's like, well, they excused the crunch, they excused the transphobia. There was also some racist stuff in the game too, arguably. And it's like, but once there are bugs and glitches that physically affect the game or your gameplay experience, that's when gamers get upset. And it's just so. And obviously that's a generalization. That's not true for everybody. Many people were already calling out CD Projekt Red, but a lot of people weren't. Not enough people were. And it's not until it started actually affecting people's gameplay that they were like, oh, maybe crunch was a bad idea after all. And maybe CD Projekt Red wasn't run as well as we hoped they would be. Because I want CD Projekt Red to be a better company, and they are just not the way that they are. They have said, by the way, I remember I did see a statement online that they said that they, and again, I'm with Preston on this. This is all words here, but they were basically like, yeah, we admit that we have done crunch in the past, despite trying not to crunch. This time with the DLC and the patches, we are determined to not crunch. I'm like, all right, well, we'll see. But
yeah,
who knows?
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully that's all sorted out. So next on the agenda, this is our last news item of the day. Ghost of Tsushima was such a success. People love that game for some reason.
Out of here.
It's it's a good game. I like the game. But there was a new job posting, I think, for a combat designer or something to that effect, for Sucker Punch, and it one of the things that it mentioned was that the applicant must have a in-depth knowledge of Ghost of Tsushima's combat systems, which I guess highly suggests that they're working on a sequel, which I guess is not all that surprising, considering it was the fastest selling new IP that Sony's ever made, which I feel like they make that headline every time they make a new IP. But
that was the headline.
First it was Spider-Man, and now it's Ghost.
Yeah. it seemed like every game that came
Yeah.
out was breaking sales records, because what else are we doing?
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah.
But you guys like Ghost of Tsushima? You excited for another one? You want another one of those?
Yeah,
so,
I mean,
God.
yeah. No, I mean, I'm excited for another Ghost game. I mean, I love the story. I don't need a continuation of Jin's journey necessarily. I would love an offshoot of a side character or something.
I agree.
Especially one of the antagonists of the game, the Archer. I can't remember her name, but I would love a story about her. She was terrific. And her whole story was very interesting to me. I would love another Ghost of Tsushima, but set somewhere else maybe. I don't know where. I'm not in Sucker Punch, but I mean, they knocked it out of the park for me, and I'm not a big open world person. I've said this many times in the podcast, so I don't want to go at length, but I'm not usually into open world stuff. Feels too repetitive and not very interesting. But Ghost of Tsushima really surprised me and sucked me in. I almost said suckered me in, but that'd be too good. But yeah, Preston, what do you think about a sequel?
I mean, it definitely deserves one, and I'm not, again, surprised. They did Infamous, right? And so
yes.
it would be crazy for them not to do a sequel to this once you have that entire world and all those assets and this wonderful combat built out. You would just lose so much time not capitalizing on that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I just think one of the reasons I think Ghost of Tsushima works on such a great level, is that the world is so believable, and the world is so like, they just worked with so many people who either lived in Tsushima or like knew about Tsushima. A lot of the voice artists or the voice actors are themselves like Japanese or Asian in some way. It's just a well done game that's made very lovingly. With a lot of time put into it, yes, but they made that time really count, and they really showed it. I mean, they showed that you can have a Western company, and Sucker Punch is, as far as I know, largely not an Asian, Japanese country or anything like that, mostly filled with white people. And so that is the kind of game or studio that you would be reticent to have develop a game that takes entirely in place with an ancient Japanese setting, right? At least a little nervous. At least if they're going to be accurate, So I just think it's a testament to how much that company loved that IP, really nurtured it and used people around them in a positive way to kind of develop that game and make it what it is. Like, I think that's what makes the world so believable, is that they listened to people who, were people of color, and like they brought them in and like were able to use them as advisors or, whatever, and literally go to Tsushima as an island and visit it and take pictures and draw, art and stuff. I mean, it's great,
Yeah, and I think, again, I wonder if they do expand that sort of stuff out, and they start moving into new islands and stuff. Do they pull in? Of course, you're going to be pulling in the history of that, but you have this knowledge base and you have these connections to the people that you've reached out to, and so it would be pretty wild for them not to go through with that. But I really like Ghost of Tsushima. I got about 30 hours, 40 hours into it, got into the second part, and sort of fell off. I probably should have just run through the story, but I started obsessing over every question mark. And so the entire first section, I did every question mark, and that burnt me out real hard because it does get repetitive if you do that.
For sure.
But I mean, it's still it's pure joy playing that game, joy and beauty. And like, you're just giving back to this war-torn country, and you feel, I don't know, like a sense of belonging as Jin. I don't know. It works really well.
Yeah, I think we've just come up with the name for the Ghost of Tsushima sequel, Joy and Beauty, or they could also alternatively call it More Foxes, Ghost of Tsushima 2, More Foxes.
Wind
I would
and
also
Foxes.
be very Winded Foxes. More,
yeah.
That would you can now pet not only pet the fox, but you can have them attack your enemies or something. I don't know. But
it'll be like
Sucker
in
Punch
BioShock. be like BioShock, all the little sisters that you save, but it'll be all the foxes that you pet are now just in this horde that you can
Damn,
send
there we
off at
go.
people. Yeah,
There's an end game thing right there.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I've said it before. It's a solid 8 out of 10 for me. It's I'm not big on the idea of a sequel myself. I wasn't big on the. I like it. I like the game, but I wasn't its
hmm
biggest fan. So solid 8 out of 10. What can I say? I think it comes
yeah.
down to taste though, because I like the thing is replaying Red Dead Redemption 2, as I mentioned I'm doing earlier. What I like about that game is that how it's so slow and every action is methodical, like picking plants and herbs and stuff, and skinning animals and stuff. You have to go through a whole animation to do that. You have to get off your horse, and it's like it makes every action like that feel important. It makes picking herbs to make health potions feel like you're sort of really earning that. It feels like you're going on like a mission to do everything that you need to do. Whereas in Ghost of Tsushima, it's like another open world game. You just press a button to pick stuff up, and it's just like you're going, okay, I need to pick up some dyes, some flowers for this outfit that I want to get. Okay, better throw on a podcast and get this done. You know, uh,
Oh, I
so
should have played a podcast while I was doing some of that, but I never
That would
did.
have been good.
I gotta totally disagree with you, James. That's actually what I love about Ghost of Tsushima. When you talk about there being a whole animation for you get off the horse, I literally just squinted in pain. I was like, that sounds awful. Like, I can never play Red Dead because honestly, and it's exactly what you were talking about earlier. You were talking about how if you don't like riding horses around a lot of areas without much happening, and then a huge action scene, I think that's what you said. I just can't. I can't do that. When I heard about Red Dead Redemption 2, and I never got into the first one either. But also, I don't think I was playing video games at the time. But anyway, it just sounded so boring to me, and so just aggravating. I
Mhm.
like it that in Ghost of Tsushima, you press a button, you pick up things, you can get off your horse like really quickly. Like, it is a lot of horse riding, but I feel like there's always like 10 seconds or 30 seconds, there's always something to do, someone to fight, something to pick up. So certainly it depends on the way you play Ghost of Tsushima. I did not play it like Preston did, and I would never do that because that would absolutely have burnt me out. So I don't
Yeah.
blame you at all, Preston, but like that would have burnt me out too. But
Yeah, I
I
don't
I
recommend
was
it.
I am yeah. I am not a completionist, so I did not play like that. But I did feel compelled to at least do a lot of it.
Mhm.
I did all of the legends, I did all of the side quests. And I got armor and stuff whenever I could. But anyway, I think a sequel is exciting. I can't believe they're going to introduce foxes as a pet that you can do. Long-term RPG storytelling elements. Amazing.
Yeah, I think with James, like what you're saying with as compared to Red Dead Redemption 2, and I think the issue I also kind of had with Ghost of Tsushima was like it had the Assassin's Creed, you ride by something, you just snatch it. Because there's this like they're trying to make through implementing the foxes and the birds and the wind, they are trying to make you more organically part of the world. Where in Red Dead 2 goes all the way with that, and you are
yeah,
completely within the world. And then there's just these video game mechanics that, and it's this ease of access to it, which is also really nice. But it feels like it's in this weird middle ground where they can't decide the sort of like reverence for their world that they want to take, and do they want to have you? And it's the same thing that I think y'all have talked about before, which is yeah, you still go to that place and you still follow that fox every time. It's not as organic as it initially appeared to be, which was kind of frustrating once you got into it because it's like, wow, this is so cool. You're so immersed into the world. And then eventually it's just like, this stupid fox, just show me where it's at. I don't care anymore about following you.
yeah.
Uh,
And even that is
so
the
you
thing
lose
as
that.
well. Like even with like the guiding wind as well. Like I know everyone praises the guiding wind, like oh, it immerses you in the world and stuff. But for me, it's just like you eventually see through that, and it's like okay, there's the where the wind's heading. That's my waypoint. That's where I'm going. And like yeah, that's cool, but that still feels gamey. Like it's not like a thing in Red Dead Redemption 2 where all the stuff that happens in that world like feels like it's happening in that world. It doesn't feel like I was the one who activated it. Like anytime that I see that wind going, I know that I'm the one who made that happen. I know that that wind is going that way because I pressed the button on the map. But with Red Dead Redemption 2, you know, I'm riding along and somebody calls out to me from the side of the road, and it's like, oh, you know, let's go and see what this person wants, you know, and go and help them, and maybe I'll get rewarded for that later in the game. Like maybe I'll go and help this guy. Maybe I'll give this guy a cure for his snake bite, and later on I'll see him outside the gun store, and he'll let me buy a free gun, you know. And it's that sort of stuff that like, I mean, like you said, it goes all in, and Ghost of Tsushima just sort of doesn't.
Yeah. I mean, I like the fact that I'm the one who sets the wind. I don't know about you, James, but in my day-to-day life, I cannot command the wind to move whenever I want. So I feel pretty badass when that happens. But I get it. I mean, it didn't always help me where I was going. I mean, I suck at directionality and spatial reasoning. So sometimes the wind wasn't always as helpful as I wanted it to be. So I'm with you on like having some criticism of the wind thing. Also, I mean, I know James and I are like disagreeing a little bit on Ghost of Tsushima, but I want to be clear. It's like a 9 out of 10 game for me. Like I don't think it's perfect or whatever. They're definitely, and 10 out of 10 doesn't mean perfect anyway. But you know, so I definitely have my criticisms of Ghost, but I like that I was able to call the wind at any time with just the touchpad. I mean, at least they're making use of the goddamn touchpad for once in their life.
The only game to do that since 2010 or 2014, whatever.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not gonna. I feel like anything else I say about Ghost of Tsushima, I'm just gonna be repeating myself. So I think I'll just wrap it up there with that. I think I'm happy for Ghost of Tsushima fans that they're probably getting a sequel. It's not at all surprising that there's a sequel coming, and I think that's probably a good thing for those who want it.
Do you think you're going to go back? Do you think you'll play the sequel at all, or do you think you'll skip it?
I mean, I probably will, yeah, because I mean, it's like I said, I think I like the first one well enough. I think if I do play the sequel, I will play it in English, because I think a lot of the reason that I maybe didn't click with the Ghost of Tsushima earlier on is because I was playing it with Japanese dub, and it felt tougher to concentrate on and to get immersed in it, just because I was having to do more work to follow the story and the dialogue. But yeah, that is the end of our show. That's all the news for this week. That went by pretty quickly. So yeah. Right. With that said, Preston, do you want to tell people where they can find you and Press X to Doubt?
Yeah, so you can find me. I'm at PT Willke on Twitter. I don't really do a whole lot of posting on there. Not very good at Twitter for either my personal bio or Press X Doubt. But we are also at Press Doubt on Twitter and Press_XT. No, see, I can't even remember. Press_X2 Doubt on Instagram, which that I've been a little bit more involved on.
Sure. I'll throw those in the description as well for anyone who wants to check that out. And I recommend checking it out because, as we said earlier, I was on this week and it's a lot of fun to listen to and to partake in. So definitely check it out.
And I forget that we're even a podcast. We're on every major podcasting system. You can find us on Spotify. We don't do necessarily YouTube or any video versions, but we do have all major audio. So I really appreciated you coming on and giving me the chance to come on here.
Great, yeah. Thank you for coming on. So if you liked this episode of our podcast, you can subscribe to it on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. You can also rate us on Apple Podcasts, I'm told. Apparently that helps us quite a lot. Dory is currently holding up a calendar that says toilet roll plays an important part of my life, which is strange and random. So I guess on that note, we'll see you next week. All right.
It's the pun of the day.
Okay, that's the pun of the day. All right. Bye.